The no. One weird habit all covert narcissists have, but they hide it. They secretly obsess over rehearsed reactions. There's a silence to them, but it's not peace. It's calculation. It's choreography. The covert narcissist doesn't live in the moment. They script it. Every word you hear, every expression they flash, every sigh or tilt of the head, it's been rehearsed like a scene from a play. You think you're talking to someone authentic, but what you're actually facing is a mask that's been polished in the privacy of their own obsessive mind. They rehearse how they'll sound when they're the victim. They rehearse how to cry without crying. They rehearse looking vulnerable. They rehearse appearing like they're just trying to do the right thing. And while you're being real, feeling, reacting, connecting, they're behind a mental curtain, delivering the lines they wrote hours before they even saw you. You ever notice how they just knew what to say to get under your skin? That wasn't intuition, that was rehearsal. They don't communicate, they manipulate, and the scariest part is they practice pain, they practice sincerity, they rehearse compassion, but none of it's real. It's a tool to get what they want without showing who they are. That weird stillness about them, it's not calm, it's control. They sit in silence not to listen, but to plan. They wait for their moment like a snake in tall grass. Not to speak truth, not to connect, but to deliver a line. One they've run over in their head 20 times, and when it lands, they smile, not because you're bonded, because you're hooked. This obsession with rehearsed reactions is their secret addiction. It gives them an edge. It makes them feel superior, because while you're coming from the heart, they're coming from a script. While you're bleeding emotionally, they're executing a performance, and the applause they crave. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's just your compliance, your confusion, your submission, and the moment you catch on, they panic. Not outwardly, no, that would be too exposed. They panic internally. Because if you see behind the performance, you strip them of the only thing that gives them power. Their illusion. They don't know how to be real. So when you refuse to be deceived, they feel naked, weak, vulnerable in the way they fear the most. The reason they hide this obsession is because it proves they're not who they pretend to be. It exposes their emptiness. If you saw how much they need to rehearse empathy, you'd know it's not natural to them. It's not embedded, it's fabricated. That's the weird habit they pray you never see. They are emotionally artificial. Now, here's the truth. Nobody rehearses goodness when they already have it. Nobody rehearses kindness when it comes from the heart. But a covert narcissist rehearses it because it's a costume. They need the mask to be believed. They need the mask to be adored. They need the mask to be safe. And they fear the moment that mask slips. You ever wonder why they're so controlled? Why they never really blow up in front of others the way overt narcissists do? It's because the covert kind fears exposure more than anything. They'd rather swallow poison than show their true colors. Because their whole identity is a house of cards. One gust of truth, and it all collapses. This weird habit of mental rehearsal gives them a false sense of security. It makes them feel like they can walk into any situation and steer it. They think they're the smartest person in the room, not because they are, but because they've already run simulations in their head. They think planning emotion is power, but in reality, it's prison. Because here's the paradox: the more they rehearse, the more disconnected they become. The more they practice fake reactions, the further they get from real relationships. They become a shell, a polished mannequin. And while you grow, evolve, and feel fully, they rot behind rehearsed performances, emotionally frozen in place. You start to feel like something's off, don't you? Like you're talking to someone who's too perfect. In how they respond, that's your gut screaming truth. You're not paranoid, you're perceptive. The reason it feels fake is because it is fake. And your soul knows it before your mind can explain it. And when you stop reacting the way they want, when you stop dancing to their carefully crafted script, they freeze, they glitch. They don't know what to do because you've gone off script. And that's your power. When you live in truth, you shatter their performance. When you respond from your soul, you break their control. Their weirdest, darkest habit is needing to rehearse life because they're terrified to live it. They're terrified to be spontaneous, to be messy, to be vulnerable, because deep down they don't feel enough, and if they showed up raw, they think you'd reject them, so they bury who they are and become what they think you'll accept. But here's your freedom. You don't need to play their game. You don't need to join their stage. You don't need to be manipulated by someone who can't show up real. When you recognize their rehearsal for what it is, emotional fraud, you step back into your truth. You reclaim your voice. You stop being part of their performance and start becoming the author of your own life. They study you more than they love you. Let's rip the mask off. When you're in the presence of a covert narcissist, you may feel flattered, like someone is paying deep attention to you. They remember things you've said. They ask about your dreams, your fears, your past. They listen so well, it almost feels magical. Soul mate level connection, but it's not love. It's a collection, and they're not connecting. They're calculating. They don't study you because they admire you. They study you because they want to master you. They want to learn the blueprint of your emotional architecture so they can walk in, move furniture around, and lock the doors behind them. Every detail you share becomes ammunition. Every vulnerability you open becomes a future trapdoor. Love is about knowing someone and cherishing them. This isn't that. This is strategic surveillance. Covert narcissists are emotional spies. And the scariest part, they look like they care. They look invested. But what they're really doing is setting up the chessboard. And you're the game piece they want complete control over. They're watching how you respond to praise, so they know how to pull you in. They're watching how you respond to criticism, so they know where your wounds are. They're watching what makes you cry, what makes you smile, what makes you doubt yourself. And once they've mapped out your emotional operating system, they begin the real work: emotional domination. The more you reveal, the more power they gain. You think you're being vulnerable with someone safe, but they're treating your soul like a file folder. File that memory under abandonment issues. Keep that one under low self-worth. Store that one under daddy wounds. It's sick. It's subtle and it's surgically precise. They pretend it's love because that's how they get you to keep opening up. But real love doesn't study you like a project. Real love accepts without exploitation. Covert narcissists can't do that. Because for them, power is safer than intimacy. And to get power, they must know how to control your buttons before you realize you've been programmed. They will mirror you. They'll reflect your beliefs, your dreams, your fears, until you think you've found someone who gets you. But what you've actually found is someone who's mastered the art of mimicry. You're not connecting with their soul. You're connecting with a curated reflection of your own, and they've built it deliberately. Eventually, you'll notice it. Something doesn't feel quite right. You'll catch them slipping, saying something that reveals they were never aligned with you in the first place. But they'll gaslight you. They'll say you're being sensitive or imagining things, because if you realize that all this attention was actually an invasion, they lose control, and here's what they don't want you to know. Love doesn't require strategy. Real connection isn't about dissecting someone. It's about joining them, but a covert narcissist is incapable of true joining, so they study you instead. They build an emotional manual of who you are, and then pretend they wrote it with you. It's all about the long game. Covert narcissists are patient predators. They're not trying to conquer you in one move. They're trying to own you over time. That means gaining your trust. That means making you feel safe. That means keeping you emotionally invested, so you ignore the red flags because the connection feels so intense. And when the manipulation begins, when they pull back, when they punish you with silence, blame you for overreacting, or start showing cracks in the facade, you question yourself, not them. Why? Because they studied you so well that they know exactly where to plant the seed of self-doubt. That's the ultimate betrayal. You may think, but they cared so deeply about what I said, what I felt. No. They recorded what you said, they analyzed what you felt, and they kept those files in a mental cabinet labeled leverage. That's not care, that's emotional espionage, and your confusion is a symptom of their success. They didn't fall in love with you, they fell in love with controlling your narrative, And when you try to reassert your truth, when you call out the manipulation, they'll play innocent. I was just trying to understand you. No, they were trying to own you under the mask of understanding. When you break free of someone like this, you'll feel like your entire emotional history has been downloaded, tampered with, and reprogrammed. But here's the awakening. Now you see the difference between someone who sees you and someone who studies you. And that awareness, that's the beginning of reclaiming your power. Because once you stop being their subject of analysis, you start being your own source of strength. You no longer need validation from someone who is just pretending to understand you. You realize that real love isn't rehearsed. It isn't strategic. And it sure as hell doesn't come from being dissected and decoded. And when you become immune to the flattery, immune to the mirroring, immune to the obsessive attention that hides a dark agenda, you rise. You stop being their experiment. You stop being their puppet. And you start being something they cannot stand, uncontrollable. They fantasize about being the victim in a story where you're the villain. There's a twisted movie playing in the mind of a covert narcissist. And in that movie, they're always the misunderstood hero, the tortured soul, the sensitive, wounded spirit who gave everything and got nothing in return. But here's the kicker. In that fantasy, you are always the villain. You're the ungrateful one, the aggressor, the destroyer of their peace, and the scariest part, they believe it. You could have poured your heart out. You could have sacrificed time, love, dreams, even your sanity trying to be what they needed. But none of that matters. In their rewritten script, all your efforts vanish. All your pain is erased. All your truths are twisted into lies they can use to justify their victimhood. Why? Because covert narcissists need to be the wounded one. It's how they gain sympathy, support, and power. They tell half-truths. They spin partial facts into entire narratives of suffering. They'll cry, they'll tremble, they'll say, I just don't understand why they treated me that way. But they leave out the manipulation, the gaslighting, the emotional warfare they launched behind closed doors. They leave out the fact that you begged, bled, and bent yourself backwards trying to make it work. And don't think for 1 second it's random. This narrative serves a purpose. It protects their image. It recruits allies. It ensures they're never held accountable. Because if they're the victim, they never have to change. They never have to reflect. And anyone who challenges that fantasy becomes the next villain in their tale. Covert narcissists are masters of emotional propaganda. They don't just play the victim. They campaign for it. They drop seeds of doubt in mutual friends. They paint you as unstable, unpredictable, cruel. They do it with such calm conviction that people believe them. And while you're sitting in silence, shattered by what they did, they're out there collecting pity and polishing their halo. What makes this so dangerous is that the story is often built while you're still in the relationship. They take notes. They store grievances. They create a version of you based not on truth, but on how they can twist that truth into something that serves their narrative. Then, when the relationship ends, they hit play on that script, and the smear campaign begins. But here's the truth. This fantasy isn't about you at all. It's about their inability to face their own darkness. They project their shame, their guilt, their failures onto you, because it's too painful for them to see themselves clearly. So they rewrite the story, make you the monster, and themselves the martyred saint. It's emotional theater, and they demand a standing ovation, and when you try to defend yourself, when you try to explain your side, they use that as more proof. See, look how aggressive they are. Look how defensive. You're stuck in a trap. Because no matter how gently or clearly you speak, you're still cast as the villain in their mind. You can't win a game you never agreed to play. The tragedy is, people believe them, because covert narcissists don't look like the villains. They are soft-spoken, they cry easily, they have that poor me energy that pulls people in. They wear the mask of innocence so well that even your closest friends and family may start to question you. That's when it cuts the deepest. When their fantasy starts corrupting your reality, you may start questioning yourself. Was I too harsh? Did I overreact? Maybe I was the problem. But let me tell you, self-reflection is noble, but it becomes a weapon in the hands of a covert narcissist. They count on your empathy to keep you doubting. They thrive off your confusion because as long as you're spinning, they stay in control of the story. And here's the worst part. They enjoy watching the fallout. They enjoy seeing you isolated. They enjoy watching people turn on you, because in their mind, it proves they were right. It proves they were the victim all along. They fantasize about this. They dream of the day you're the one left explaining yourself, while they sit back and say, I tried everything. I was just too loving, too forgiving. But truth doesn't stay buried, and eventually their fantasy begins to collapse. Because when someone's story never includes their own faults, people start to notice. When every ex is a monster, when every friend who left is toxic, when every breakup is someone else's fault, patterns emerge. And those patterns shine a light on the truth they fought so hard to hide. When you wake up to this pattern, something shifts inside you. You stop needing to defend yourself. You stop needing to explain your side, because you realize this was never about who you really were. It was about who they needed you to be in order to escape accountability. And once you stop playing the role, the spell begins to break. You don't need to clear your name in every room they've poisoned. You just need to own your truth. Loudly, boldly, unapologetically. Because their fantasy only works if you stay silent. But when you reclaim your voice, when you stop shrinking under their accusations, you become something they can't manipulate, a person who knows exactly who they are. You were never the villain. You were the threat to their false reality. You were the mirror they couldn't stand, and that's why they rewrote the story. But you're the one holding the pen now, and the next chapter, it's about freedom, it's about healing, and it's about never being cast in someone else's nightmare again. Their niceness is a trap, not a trait. Let's make one thing crystal clear, Covert narcissists don't weaponize rage first. They weaponize niceness, that charming smile, that sweet voice, that over-the-top thoughtfulness. It all feels so real until it doesn't, because behind every compliment, behind every favor, behind every kind gesture is a hook. And once you're caught, they start reeling you in. You see, their niceness isn't genuine kindness, it's currency. It's a down payment on the control they want to gain over you. They're not being nice because it's who they are. They're being nice because it's what works. It's bait, and once you take it, they begin the slow, almost invisible process of shifting the power dynamic. At first, you feel special, chosen. They're attentive, generous, even selfless. They remember your favorite things. They go out of their way. They flood you with praise and understanding, and all of it feels earned. You think, finally, someone who gets me. But what you don't realize is that you're being conditioned to trust, depend, and comply. Then, once you've relaxed into that niceness, they begin testing the waters. A passive-aggressive comment here, a guilt trip there, a subtle dismissal of your emotions when you push back. You'll catch glimpses of something darker beneath the surface, but they quickly cover it up with another smile, another act of kindness, and you think, maybe I misunderstood. That's the trap. They're training you to question your instincts, to override your discomfort, because if they're being so nice, how could they be hurting you? How could someone who brings you flowers also break your spirit? That inner conflict, cognitive dissonance, is their playground, and they exploit it masterfully. The covert narcissist wants you confused. That confusion weakens your boundaries. You stop confronting red flags because you don't want to seem ungrateful. You stop speaking your truth because you don't want to ruin the good moments. And slowly, without even realizing it, you become emotionally disarmed. Then comes the switch. The warmth gets colder. The support becomes conditional. The niceness becomes rare and only appears when they want something. And because you tasted how good it could be, you start working harder to earn it back. You apologize more. You sacrifice more. You chase the version of them that only ever existed to manipulate you. This is not kindness. This is control dressed in empathy's clothing. True kindness doesn't punish. It doesn't disappear when you say no. It doesn't make you feel small, guilty, or broken. Covert narcissists use niceness the way a spider uses silk. Spin a web so beautiful you never see the danger until you're stuck. They also use that nice persona to shield themselves from exposure. If you ever try to explain how manipulative they are, people won't believe you, but they're so nice. They'll say, that's by design. The narcissist knows how to perform niceness just long enough to keep you isolated in your truth. To the world, they're an angel, but behind closed doors, they're the storm. And let's talk about how they react when their niceness doesn't get them what they want. That's when the mask cracks. Suddenly, they're cold, distant, passive-aggressive, sometimes even cruel. You're left wondering what you did wrong, and that's the goal. To make you feel like you broke something, so you go running back, apologizing for setting a boundary. This is the emotional yo they thrive on. Give affection, take it away. Give praise, withdraw it. Be generous, then guilt trip you for it. The cycle keeps you guessing, keeps you working, keeps you stuck. And the more you try to earn their niceness again, the deeper their control sinks in. But here's your truth. Niceness that disappears when you speak up isn't kindness. It's manipulation. Generosity with strings attached is not love. It's leverage. And people who truly care about you won't use your gratitude as a leash around your throat. They won't twist their good deeds into chains. You have to look past the surface. You have to ask, what does their niceness cost me? If you find yourself silencing your needs, erasing your instincts, or sacrificing your identity just to keep the peace, you're not loved, you're being used. And the longer you stay, the harder it becomes to separate the illusion from reality. The only way to escape this trap is to trust your gut over their words. Watch for consistency. Listen to how you feel around them, and never let anyone convince you that their moments of kindness excuse a pattern of harm. Because real kindness doesn't confuse you, it doesn't vanish, it doesn't punish you for having needs. So yes, they may seem sweet, thoughtful, even perfect, but if their niceness is a mask that hides manipulation, it's not a blessing, it's bait. And the moment you recognize it, you take back your power. Because when you stop chasing crumbs from someone who uses kindness to control you, you open the door to a life where love is real, boundaries are respected, and your soul is finally safe. They secretly compete with you, then resent you for winning. There's a hidden war going on when you're connected to a covert narcissist. And the battlefield isn't made of bullets or bombs. It's made of comparisons. You don't know it at first, but from the moment you enter their world, they've decided you're not a partner. You're a rival, and their goal, to outshine you, outdo you, and ultimately outlast you. You might think you're in a relationship based on love, loyalty, or mutual support. But to the covert narcissist, everything is a game of one-upmanship. And here's the twisted part. They will cheer you on in public, but behind that fake smile is a gnawing resentment that you're winning at anything. Your success is their insecurity screaming in the dark. They can't stand your shine. It doesn't matter what it is. Your job, your relationships, your creativity, your spirit. The more you grow, the more threatened they feel. Because deep down, they believe they should be the center of attention. They should be admired. They should be the one people look up to. So when the spotlight lands on you, they feel robbed. And this isn't the loud kind of competition. This isn't obvious jealousy. This is quiet sabotage. They'll disguise their resentment as concern. Are you sure that's a good idea? Don't you think you're overdoing it? That promotion might take up too much of your time. They chip away at your confidence under the guise of caring. The covert narcissist thrives on subtle sabotage. They'll forget to pass on important information. They'll leave you out of key conversations. They'll suddenly need help with something important right when you're about to launch your dream. And when you succeed anyway, they act supportive on the surface, but punish you underneath it all with passive aggression, withdrawal, or coldness. Even your joy becomes a threat. If you're happy without their involvement, they take it personally. You'll notice they suddenly start competing in strange ways, copying your interests, mimicking your style, even trying to take credit for your achievements. They'll try to match or outdo everything you do because your wins remind them of what they haven't accomplished. They want your light, but not because it inspires them. They want it because it exposes their own lack of it. And instead of growing, instead of rising to the challenge, they start a campaign of quiet destruction. They criticize, undermine, and distort until you start shrinking just to make the relationship feel balanced again. But here's the wildest part. They need you to keep shining. They feed on your power. Your success gives them proximity to greatness, so they keep you close. They won't leave. Oh no. Instead, they'll stay in your orbit, draining your energy, stealing your language, parroting your ideas, until your identity gets blurred with theirs and you don't even know who's winning anymore. They won't celebrate your breakthroughs with genuine joy. They'll compare, they'll compete, and when comparison doesn't work, they'll condescend. It's not that big of a deal. You got lucky. I could have done that if I had the time. Suddenly, your mountain becomes a molehill in their eyes, because that's the only way they can tolerate your altitude. And let's not ignore how they use triangulation to deal with their competitive jealousy. They'll start praising someone else in your face, highlighting how amazing another person is just to make you feel insecure. This isn't about admiration, it's about control. They're trying to knock you off balance, to make you question your worth, so they feel bigger by comparison. The covert narcissist doesn't want equality. They want superiority, but they'll never admit it. They'll act like your fan until your light gets too bright. Then they'll try to dim it while pretending to protect it. And if you call them out, they'll say you're imagining things, being too sensitive, or jealous yourself. That's part of the manipulation. Make you question the reality they're trying to erase. This competition becomes a psychological tug-of-war where you're always trying to prove your value, even to someone who's secretly rooting against you. You'll work harder, bend more, hustle endlessly just to feel seen and supported, only to be met with coldness when you finally win. And that's when it hits you. They never wanted you to win. They only wanted you to need them. But hear this loud and clear. Their resentment is not your responsibility. You are not too much. You're not arrogant. You're not stealing anything. You were born to shine. You don't need to shrink for someone else's comfort. Your victory doesn't hurt others. It threatens only the ones who are pretending to love you but secretly want you to fail. When you finally stop minimizing your greatness to protect someone else's ego, you step into real freedom. You stop explaining your ambition. You stop apologizing for your glow. And you start surrounding yourself with people who don't compete with you. They celebrate you. That's how you heal. That's how you reclaim your power. That's how you rise beyond their reach. So remember, you're not in a race with someone who's hiding their envy behind a smile. You're on a mission. And anyone who secretly competes with you while claiming to care for you doesn't deserve front row access to your success. Let them resent you from a distance while you build a life that refuses to apologize for being brilliant. They hate when you're happy without them, but smile while you suffer. There's a dark irony in the covert narcissist's world. Your sadness comforts them, but your joy, it threatens their entire illusion. They might not throw tantrums like overt narcissists. They won't scream or slam doors. No, their weapon is more insidious. It's silence when you're soaring and smiles when you're sinking. And unless you've lived it, you won't believe how twisted it truly gets. Let's be clear, covert narcissists are emotionally addicted to your dependence. They need you to need them. They feed off your wounds because those wounds give them purpose. When you're low, they feel high. When you're broken, they feel needed. When you're questioning your worth, they feel in control. And this imbalance gives them a sick sense of emotional power. But the moment you find happiness without their involvement, everything changes. Suddenly, you're dangerous. You've become a mirror that exposes the very thing they fear the most, that they are not your source of joy. And that's when the mask starts to slip. That's when the warmth disappears. That's when the quiet punishment begins. They'll ignore your wins, downplay your breakthroughs. You'll get no applause, no validation. Just subtle withdrawal, dismissive comments, or feigned indifference. It's their way of punishing you for outgrowing their shadow, for becoming someone who no longer dances to their emotional tune. And what's even more disturbing, they'll be the first to show up when your life starts unraveling. Suddenly, they're concerned. They're checking in, but it's not compassion. It's confirmation. Your pain affirms their belief that you can't function without them. They love when you fall apart because it restores their false sense of superiority. They'll offer help that humiliates, support that suffocates, advice laced with condescension. I knew this would happen. You should have listened to me. Let me fix this for you. It's not love. It's control disguised as care. They want you broken so they can be the one to save you, only to break you all over again. And when you start healing, when you find peace, when your smile becomes genuine and no longer dependent on their presence, they don't celebrate you. They sabotage silently. They question your choices, plant seeds of doubt, whisper negativity behind your back, all because your happiness without them makes them feel invisible. Their hatred for your joy isn't about you. It's about their illusion of importance collapsing. If you're fine without them, then who are they? What role do they serve? That's the question they don't want to face. So instead of growing, instead of evolving, they attack. Covertly, subtly, strategically. You'll notice it in how they act when others praise you. That smirk, that tight smile, that awkward silence. You'll feel it when they change the subject every time you express gratitude or excitement. You'll hear it in the way they twist your joy into selfishness. You've changed. You're full of yourself lately. Don't forget who was there for you. But let me tell you something. You're not selfish for being happy. You're not arrogant for healing. You're not disloyal for choosing peace. The covert narcissist wants you to associate your happiness with guilt so they can keep you emotionally tethered. But that's manipulation. That's fear masked as love. Their smile when you suffer is real. Their frown when you rise is real. And once you see it clearly, you can't unsee it. But that's your moment of power. Because in that moment, you stop looking for validation from people who only feel whole when you feel hollow. You stop explaining your joy. You stop asking permission to feel free. The healing begins when you realize that real love celebrates your peace. Real connection wants to see you thrive. Real support dances in your joy, not in your despair. And anyone who only leans close when you're broken is not your ally. They're your emotional captor. You are allowed to smile without guilt. You are allowed to shine without apology. You are allowed to walk away from the emotional tug-of-war and say, I choose joy, even if it offends you. Because your happiness is not a betrayal. It's a revolution. It's your soul saying, I will not be owned by pain anymore. So don't shrink when they sulk. Don't explain your peace to someone who profits from your chaos. Don't dim your light to comfort the darkness in someone else. You were not born to be someone's emotional hostage. You were born to break chains, and that includes the invisible ones they wrapped around your heart with sweet words and twisted motives. Let your smile be your weapon. Let your peace be your protest. Let your freedom be the proof that you don't need their permission to be whole, because the greatest revenge to a covert narcissist is not suffering in silence. It's thriving in public and never looking back. The silent war is overtake back your voice now you see it, crystal clear. That weird hidden habit covert narcissists carry like a secret weapon. It's not just strange. It's dangerous. That fake humility, that quiet manipulation, that twisted addiction to your suffering. It's not just annoying behavior. It's emotional warfare dressed in politeness. It's poison served with a smile. And for too long, you may have questioned yourself, doubted your instincts, blamed yourself for the coldness, the distance, the confusion that followed your success. You may have bent over backwards trying to fix something that was never yours to repair. You were gaslit into silence, conditioned into compliance, trained to tolerate toxicity wrapped in charm, but not anymore. You've pulled back the curtain. You've decoded the lie. You've seen how they celebrate your pain but punish your happiness. How they pretend to cheer while secretly hoping you'll fall. How they mold their false empathy into a leash, not a lifeline. That awareness, that's your weapon now, because you can't unsee the truth. And you won't be unfree again. This isn't about revenge. It's about reclamation. It's about looking in the mirror and saying, I am no longer available for people who feed off my suffering. It's about rising, not to spite them, but to liberate yourself. Because your healing isn't just survival, it's rebellion. Your joy is a revolution. Your clarity is a declaration of war against every manipulative tactic they tried to hide behind smiles and silence. They wanted you small. You're about to go big. They wanted you broken. You're about to rise whole. They wanted you dependent. You're about to become unstoppable. So let them squirm in your silence. Let them watch your joy like it's an unfamiliar language. Let them choke on the fact that they can no longer control the narrative. You're not waiting for their approval anymore. You're not seeking their validation. You're not asking for permission to be powerful. You're done dimming your light to keep someone else comfortable in the dark. This is your time. This is your voice. This is your freedom. You don't need to expose them with words. Your peace exposes them. Your success exposes them. Your healing destroys the illusion they worked so hard to maintain. So walk out of that emotional prison with your head held high. Burn the script they gave you. Reclaim your joy. Because the greatest act of defiance in the face of covert abuse isn't rage, it's radiance, and now it's your turn to shine.